Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Interfaith Leaders Press Conference. Thank you so very much for being here today. I am Donna Schneeweiss, the board chair of the Kansas Coalition Against the Death Penalty, and I will serve as your moderator for the press conference. The death penalty is an issue of deep concern to many people of faith. 59 Kansas leaders signed a letter to the governor regarding clemency. The letter notes a number of systemic concerns about the death penalty, and it calls on the governor, quote, to give the most careful and deliberate consideration to any application seeking commutation of a death sentence to life imprisonment without parole. Our press conference today includes remarks from 4 interfaith leaders, time for questions from the media, and when we are done, we will take the interfaith letter plus 3 other letters from different faith leaders up to the governor's council office on 5th floor. And so I invite Deacon Steve Becker from the Mennonite Church to get us started.
Thank you, Donna. My name's Steve Becker. I was a district court judge for 26 years, and I followed that with a short stint. I served 6 years in the Kansas House of Representatives. But what brings me back to this most beautiful workplace in the state is my faith. I'm here to talk about my faith, and I have been taught, and I have come to believe that human life is divine, that we were created in the image of the Creator, and that we're children of God the Father. The human life is sacred. I'm talking about the sanctity of life that we get from the Creator. And that never ends. It never ends. The Creator never takes it back. But the government of the state of Kansas has given itself authority to extinguish that divinely granted life. How arrogant that is. Who do we think we are? That we can end a divinely granted life because we know it should end because of the conduct of the individual. I am not good enough. I am not good enough to take somebody's life. That caption of the case in a capital case, state of Kansas versus John Doe. I'm the state of Kansas. I'm a party to that legal case that works its way through the courts. I'm a party. You are a party to that case. And with all due respect, we aren't good enough to carry forward with a death sentence, with an execution of an individual, an execution of government-sanctioned execution of one of its citizens. We're not good enough. The government of Kansas, the legislative branch that does its work in this building, which I served in, isn't good enough to take somebody's life. And with all due respect to Governor Kelly, a governor of this state isn't good. To take life, that's why a few of us have gathered and are speaking to you. We're taking we're taking a petition to the governor asking her to commute the pending death sentences to life in prison without parole. Life in prison without parole, which I suggest is a de facto death sentence. We're going to keep them incarcerated until they die. But it is the only, if you want to call it a death sentence, it is the only death sentence that does not violate the sanctity of life. Executions, government sanctions, executions violates the divinely granted right to live. And yes, we should not interfere with that. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Deacon Becker. The next person who will speak is Reverend Eva Brown, a retired elder of the United Methodist Church.
Questions. Life has so many important questions. As the musician and songwriter Chris Berry wrote, why do we kill people for killing people to show that killing people is wrong? As a person of faith, as a clergy person, as a nurse practitioner, as a behavioral therapist, I ask Governor Kelly, can you use your moral courage to make this the time that all on death row have their sentences commuted to life imprisonment without parole? In my work, I often encounter a river of violence, and that river of violence goes from one generation to the next. I have just never been able to shake the image of a young child that comes up to their parent and says, "What did you do at work today?" And the parent says, "Oh, I injected a drug that killed someone who did something wrong." I just can't imagine how that impacts and perpetuates violence, not stop it. What do I say to my African American clients who say to me, in the state of Kansas, no one who has ever killed an African American person has ever been put on death row? Where's the justice? How do I respond to that question? The answer would be so painful. How do I preach the scriptures? How do I preach Jesus' teaching of forgiving 70 times 7 and not ask to commute these sentences? For what if we make a mistake? What if further evidence emerges years down and we the people have participated? So many questions. Commuting the death sentence to imprisonment without parole is the only answer. The only answer that stops the river of violence, that frees millions and millions of dollars for other programs that improves the quality of life for the people of Kansas. Governor Kelly, commuting these sentences to life imprisonment without parole is the answer.
Thank you, Reverend Brown. The next faith leader who will speak is Sister Therese Banker, a Sister of Charity of Leavenworth.
Good morning, everyone. I too want to say thank you for your being here. As a child growing up on a farm in Nebraska, I was caught up in the fear during the terror of Charlie Starkweather's killing spree. Most of you are not alive yet. My dad left the keys in the car. We had only one, and keys in the truck. We had no locks on our doors. We lived 80 miles from some of the murders. However, even when Charlie Starkweather was executed, I never thought much about the death penalty. Then, in 1986, I was invited by the coalition to be part of a lobby team, asking legislators to vote no on reinstating the death penalty in Kansas. I have had almost daily interactions in some form or another during the past 40 years with this policy, and more importantly, with the people that it impacts. I have been to death penalty trials and heard stories and seen pictures that have left scars on my spirit. I have walked with victim family members, listened to their journeys, and witnessed some of them go from intense grief to an ability to at times forgive and to live and love through the anger and the grief. Some of you know that I have served as a Kansas City, Kansas police chaplain for 30 years. I have hugged the children of officers who have been murdered. I have listened to members of the police department as they journey with the loss of a member of the family in blue, their team member, and their friend. I have been a Sister of Charity of Leavenworth for 62 years. And way back in 1989, our community embraced a statement in opposition to the death penalty and pledged to work for its abolition. The church we serve has many statements in opposition to the death penalty. The most recent ones coming from Pope John Paul II and our beloved Pope Francis. Our new Pope, Pope Leo, in his very recent letter to the church, titled Magnificent Humanity, noted, and I quote, "No sin, failure, humiliation, or exclusion can diminish the profound value of a human life that God has willed and called into being." From the experiences that I have described and more not mentioned, I know that the profound value of a human life cannot be honored by an execution. The death penalty ripples to correction workers, law enforcement, governors, judges, jurors, victim family members and friends, the children of both the victims and the defendants. Each and all face a decision on about giving over a piece of their humanity on this execution journey. Those who cry out for an end of the death penalty and who cry out to Governor Kelly to use her power of clemency do this to protect the magnificent humanity of all of us. Please, Governor Kelly, hear us. Convert the sentences of those Kansans facing the death penalty to life in prison without parole. Again, Governor Kelly, please hear us.
Thank you, Sister Therese. Our final faith leader is Pastor Kyle Reynolds of the United Methodist Church.
I very much appreciate you all being here. And I have to say that I do not envy Governor Kelly in this moment and the position that she finds herself in right now. As a pastor, I have listened to parishioners as they pray and process through difficult decisions in their personal and their professional lives. I have sat with and encouraged congregants and prayed with community members who are seeking clarity ahead of big choices. But those conversations have usually played out in a far less public sphere, and they have never carried so clearly the moral conscience of a state or the literal life and death of 9 men. I don't envy the governor's responsibility, a weighty one to be sure, but a vital one afforded by our Constitution and entrusted to her by the constituents of this state twice. It's a sacred, if undesirable, duty, firmly established by our judicial process, entrusted to leaders for seasons such as these, with a built-in ability to offer mercy, to correct injustice, and to try to speak into a system that we know for a fact is deeply, verifiably, demonstrably flawed. Governor Kelly is known by many people as many things, but I know her best as a persistent and a courageous advocate for a healthy Kansas. When my congregation hosted the governor and her team a few years ago, as they were in the midst of a statewide campaign to expand access to health care, I was pleased to sit alongside her and other faith leaders as we discussed the moral imperative of that effort. And I mention that because I know that this is something that the governor and I share. And intermingled into this request for the commutation of death sentences to life without parole, there are significant implications regarding the health of our state. As has already been mentioned, the moral injury and the psychological impact of supervising inmates on death row are well documented, and the continuation of this process towards an end that has not even been actualized in this state for more than 60 years only exasperates these harms. The necessarily complicated process of appeal, review, and scrutiny that is unique to those sentenced to death create repeated reminders and unnecessary uncertainty for those who follow and are most affected by these cases. Instead of living in perpetual, excruciating limbo, the governor can grant legal finality through commutation. And of course, this has profound impacts on state employees and how courts use their time. And because of that, where financial resources are allocated. Instead of using resources to investigate cases, to support victims of violent crimes, to invest in programs that actually deter crime, to reduce recidivism, or to do anything to promote a healthier state, we are investing untold hours and millions of dollars every single year chasing after something that brings absolutely no benefit to Kansas. And all of this is facilitated in a process that is manifestly unjust. We know that the death penalty isn't sought equitably. We know that it isn't imposed fairly. We know that legal representation is underfunded and bias is well documented, and even geography within our own state makes a difference in whether the death sentence is sought in a case. What is before the governor then is the choice between life and death. On the one hand, the opportunity to promote health, and on the other hand, the perpetuation of a harmful and unhelpful system. The contrast is stark. The significance of this decision cannot be overstated. The implications are ultimate. The legal license for the governor is clear. The standard is as simple as her judgment. And the choice belongs to no one but her. I do not envy the governor in this moment. But I do wonder if it might be that someone with her courage and conviction and clarity might find herself in this position, undesirable as it may be, for just such a time as this.
Thank you, Pastor Kyle. We will now take media questions, and the members of the media, if you have a specific person that you would like to address, please include that with your question. Yes, sir.
Brian Richardson with the Capital Journal.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Brian Richardson.
Okay, Brian, thank you.
So the governor announced, I believe about an hour prior to this, that she denied the clemency request of car runners, and I was just trying to get your thoughts on that, considering what you heard from the state.
So the question is from Brian Richardson with the Topeka Capital Journal, and his question deals with the fact that just prior to this conference, Governor Kelly announced the denial of clemency to the Carr brothers. And I have a statement. As people of faith, we feel that Governor Kelly can balance accountability with mercy. Commuting death sentences to life without parole would mean prisoners remain incarcerated for the rest of their lives while accomplishing legal finality in their cases and conserving vast public resources that could be used to prevent violence, serve crime survivors and their families. Next question. Braden?
Yes, that's right. I wanted to get your take. The governor released a statement. It seems to be of the opinion that the death penalty is Kansas law. Almost seems to be of the opinion that it's not for Kansas based on that. I'm interested in hearing a response to that.
So Braden Dave from KSMT asked about Governor Kelly's statement and referring to the death penalty as being part of law. What I am going to say about that is that it is part of the law, and clemency is part of the law. Clemency allows for the governor to consider the good of the state and not just the facts of individual cases. And so that is a piece that has to be brought into the consideration of these cases. Next question. Okay. I know this is a kind of a transition point, but before we head up to the Governor's Council's office, I want to thank our faith leaders, Deacon Becker, Reverend Brown, Sister Therese, Pastor Kyle, for being here today. And I want to thank all the other Kansans and persons of faith who have come to join us today. We know that the death penalty causes grievous harm when it is employed, and we see the impacts of that harm day in and day out. So as we prepare to go to the Governor's Council office, I invite the interested Kansans who have joined us to go with us. The delivery of the letters is not just for the faith leaders, it's for anyone who wants to go. So a couple, you might say, housekeeping details. The Governor's Council's office is located on the 5th floor. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Capitol, I would suggest that some of you use the cage elevator, which is immediately to your right, or you can use the elevator, which is directly behind me. That one is out of commission for maintenance. So when we get up there, we'll wait until the group has regathered, and then we will go together to the council's office. Thank you so much for being here today.
We will return in 5 minutes.